Imagine waking up every morning not knowing if you would survive the day. Not because of some faraway war or disease, but because the very life you were born into was designed to break you. This was the reality for medieval peasants, the backbone of Europe's economy, yet the most oppressed and overlooked group in society. From the 5th to the 15th century, medieval Europe was a world of castles, knights, and kings. But while the nobility enjoyed lavish banquets and luxurious lives, peasants who made up over 80% of the population lived under constant hardship, barely scraping by. Their existence was a daily struggle against hunger, disease, and harsh social rules that left them powerless. The burden of feudalism. Medieval peasants lived under the feudal system, a rigid hierarchy that gave landowners immense power over their lives. Most peasants were serfs, legally tied to the land they worked. They could not freely leave or change jobs, and their labor was not entirely their own. In exchange for using a plot of land to grow food, they had to pay taxes and give a portion of their crops to their lords. Imagine planting an entire field of wheat, tending to it from dawn to dusk, only to have half of it confiscated by your lord. This system trapped peasants in a cycle of poverty. Even if they were industrious and clever, their status left little room for social mobility. Daily life and endless work. A peasant's day began before sunrise. The fields were unforgiving, and the work never ended. Planting, weeding, harvesting, and tending to animals consumed their entire day. Children were expected to contribute from a young age, often starting farm labor as soon as they could walk properly. Homes were small, one-room structures made of wood or mud, often shared with animals to provide warmth. Winters were especially brutal, without proper insulation or food reserves. Many peasants succumbed to cold and malnutrition. The diet was monotonous: bread, porridge, and occasionally vegetables. Meat was a luxury rarely afforded. Disease and poor sanitation. Hygiene was almost non-existent. Medieval villages had primitive waste systems, and rivers often doubled as both water supply and sewage disposal. Disease spread easily. Dysentery, typhoid, and other illnesses were common, killing many before they reached adulthood. The Black Death in the 14th century decimated Europe's population, killing millions, including peasants. Those who survived lived in constant fear of illness. Medical care was primitive. Treatments often did more harm than good. Bloodletting, herbal potions, or prayers were standard. There were no vaccines, no antibiotics, and little understanding of germs. A simple infection could easily turn fatal. The burden of taxes and rents. Beyond labor, peasants were crushed under taxes. Lords demanded portions of crops, money, and sometimes labor for construction or military service. The church also imposed tithes, 10% of their produce on top of everything else. Failure to meet these obligations could result in punishment, eviction, or imprisonment. Imagine spending weeks harvesting crops, only to hand over the majority to someone who might never see the work of their hands. This economic strain meant that famine and starvation were always close. Famine and hunger was a permanent companion. Crop failures due to bad weather, pests, or disease often led to famine. Peasants had no safety net, no government aid, no food banks, no hospitals. They relied on limited stored grains and what little they could grow. Some resorted to desperate measures, eating roots, leaves, or even rodents. Cannibalism, while rare, was documented during extreme famines. The scarcity of food shaped their entire life, influencing health, social behavior, and even mortality rates. Social inequality and oppression. Peasants were at the bottom of a strict social hierarchy. The nobility lived in fortified castles, attended feasts, and made laws that dictated peasant life. Challenging a lord's authority could result in severe punishment, whipping, imprisonment, or worse. Women faced additional oppression. They were expected to do farm labor alongside men, manage household duties, and care for children. They had limited rights, could be married off without consent, and were often vulnerable to abuse. Peasant revolts did occur, such as the Peasants' Revolt in England in 1381, but these uprisings were often brutally suppressed, leaving the majority of peasants powerless to change their conditions. Religion and control. The church played a dual role. It offered hope through faith, but also reinforced social hierarchies. Priests taught obedience to lords and kings, promising heavenly rewards for earthly suffering. Religious festivals provided temporary respite, but did not alleviate the underlying hardships of peasant life. Superstitions were widespread. Peasants feared witches, curses, and divine punishment, often dedicating precious time and resources to rituals that had no real effect on their struggles. Moments of community and resilience. Despite the hardships, medieval peasants were resilient. Festivals, communal work, and family bonds offered brief relief from the harsh realities of life. Folk tales, songs, and local legends were passed down as a source of entertainment and hope. Communities depended on mutual aid. Neighbors helped each other during harvests, illness, or emergencies. While life was brutal, human resilience allowed peasants to survive for centuries under oppressive conditions. Legacy of peasant life. The struggles of medieval peasants shaped European society. Their labor sustained kingdoms, built castles, and grew the food that fed both nobles and armies. While they were oppressed, their resilience eventually contributed to social change, revolts, improved labor rights, and the slow decline of serfdom in the late Middle Ages. Understanding their suffering gives us a glimpse into a world that seems distant yet brutally real. It reminds us that the luxuries and freedoms we take for granted today were fought for over centuries by ordinary people living extraordinary hardships. Conclusion. Life for medieval peasants was not just difficult, it was a relentless struggle for survival. Hunger, disease, labor, and oppression defined their existence. Yet, even in the darkest times, their resilience, community, and small joys helped them endure. When we think of castles, knights, and chivalry, we must also remember the millions of peasants whose harsh lives made that world possible.